Wow, right? I mean, that single quote from an actual F-14 pilot, it tells you pretty much everything you need to know about the soul of the Tomcat. This wasn't just another fighter jet. Nope, it was an attitude. It was a whole culture, really, a raw expression of power that even now, 50 years after its first flight, just completely captures our imagination.
So, let's get into it. Let's really dive into this legend. We're going to explore what made the F-14 Tomcat such an absolute icon. We'll look at the machine itself, the nuts and bolts. We'll talk about the insane missions its crews flew, and then how its myth is being kept alive today, long after its retirement. And it all boils down to this one big question. Why? Why does this one aircraft still hold such a powerful grip on us?
To really get the legend, you've got to start with the machine itself, the hardware. The Tomcat was born out of the Cold War. You have to picture it. Grumman was tasked with building a jet for one main reason, to defend the U.S. aircraft carriers from these huge swarms of Soviet bombers. And to do that, it had to be built, well, completely different from anything else out there.
So, right at the heart of the F-14's design was this idea of a two-person crew. And it makes sense, right? The pilot, they had their hands completely full just flying this beast. So, the Navy did something brilliant. They put a second brain in the back seat, the Radar Intercept Officer, or RIO. Think about it. The RIO has no flight controls. Their entire world, their whole job, was to manage this ridiculously powerful radar, the navigation, the weapons, the whole fight. The saying goes, the pilot was the bus driver, but the RIO was the mission commander. That partnership, that teamwork, it was absolutely everything.
But that partnership in the cockpit was constantly being tested by the jet's own heart, its engines. The early Tomcats, the F-14As, they had these TF-30 engines, and man, they were notoriously temperamental. Pilots had to baby the throttles, constantly, always terrified of a compressor stall. It was a huge source of stress. But then came the F-14D with its brand new General Electric F-110 engines, and the change was, well, as one former pilot put it, it was just unbelievable. It totally transformed the aircraft. It unleashed its full potential and finally gave pilots the raw power and, just as important, the reliability they had always dreamed of.
So, it goes without saying, right? A machine this powerful, this demanding, it took a special kind of person to fly it. Flying the Tomcat wasn't just a job. It was a high-wire act. It demanded an incredible amount of skill, precision, and just pure nerve.
Just look at this number, 55. 55 degrees per second. Do you know what that is? That's the yaw rate. That's the speed the nose of the jet was whipping around sideways while a test pilot was intentionally putting it into a flat spin. It's a number that represents the absolute knife edge of control, a place where one tiny mistake, one hesitation, could be your very last.
And this is what it took to survive on that edge. This is the flat spin recovery procedure they came up with. I mean, just try to imagine it. You're tumbling out of the sky, the jet is whipping around at 55 degrees a second, and you have to be calm enough, methodical enough, to work through these exact steps. Stick forward, neutral lateral, rudder opposite the spin. The sheer level of skill and training just to test the aircraft, let alone fight in it, it's just mind-boggling. And believe me, that skill was put to the ultimate test in the real world. We're talking tense Cold War intercepts way up over the Norwegian Sea, all the way to actual combat over the Persian Gulf. The stories from the pilots and RIOs who flew these missions, I mean, they're truly the stuff of legend. So here's the question for you. What happens when the most powerful radar in the entire fleet goes up against the fastest passenger jet ever built? Well, during Operation Desert Shield, an F-14 RIO named Hey Joe Parson found himself in exactly that situation. A super-fast, super-high-altitude contact was streaking right towards the carrier battle group, and it was coming from a known threat direction. The entire fleet was on high alert. We're talking missiles on the rail, ready to fire.
And in that tense moment, the Tomcat's legendary AWG-9 radar did exactly what it was built to do. Parson pointed it at the contact, and in his own words, boom. The lock-on vector was just massive, longer than anything he'd ever seen, which meant incredible speed and altitude. Turns out, it was the Concorde on its weekly flight. Luckily, Parson was an aviation history buff. He recognized what it was, got on the radio, and told the commanders on the ship to stand down, literally moments before they made a catastrophic mistake. It was just a perfect example of man and machine working together flawlessly.
The F-14 was officially retired from the U.S. Navy back in 2006. But here's the crazy part. Even with the real machines now silent, sitting in museums, the legend seems more powerful than ever. So that begs the question, right? How do you keep that story, that feeling, alive for a whole new generation?
Well, one of the most incredible ways the Tomcat lives on today is through flight simulation. But I'm not talking about a simple game. A team called Heat Blur Simulations has, for all intents and purposes, digitally resurrected the F-14. Their simulation is so accurate, so completely faithful to the real thing, that when the actual Tomcat pilots and RIOs get in the virtual cockpit, they get this deeply emotional reaction. They say it feels like they're really back there, like they're home.
And you have to understand, the scale of this challenge was just immense. This wasn't just, making a video game. This was like digital archaeology. The team spent years reverse engineering classified systems just from public documents, plowing through thousands of pages of manuals, talking to the guys who actually flew the jet. They even had to invent a crazy sophisticated AI called Jester to act as your virtual RIO in the back seat. And on top of all that, they had to perfect the tech to let two real people fly together online, one in each seat, just like the real thing.
Of course, the legend doesn't just live on in the digital world. It's also preserved through these incredibly powerful images. You have photographers like Eric Hildebrandt, and he didn't just take pictures of an airplane. As another pilot put it, he took an image and turned it into an emotional journey. His photos captured the power, the grit, the absolute soul of the Tomcat and the people who flew it. He helped cement that image in all of our memories.
Which really leaves us with this final thought. When the machine itself is gone, how do we keep a legend alive? The F-14 Tomcat, it was always more than just a complex machine of wires and hydraulics and titanium. It was a story of unbelievable innovation, of pure courage on the razor's edge, and of course, of that unapologetic, rebellious spirit we started with. And that story, it's kept alive, not just in museums, but in the memories of the crews who flew her, in these breathtaking photographs, and even in digital ghosts that let us, for a moment, touch a piece of that legend ourselves.